He stood there, drowning in an oversized suit, his hands trembling as the weight of the entire courtroom's gaze crushed down on him. Eyes locked onto him, some filled with mockery, some with pity, but most with disbelief. This was absurd, right? A kid, barely 13, standing alone at the plaintiff's table, daring to go up against a team of ruthless legal professionals. But then, against all odds, he pulled out a single document. One that could shift the entire course of this trial. One that could change everything. The room fell into stunned silence. The judge, intrigued, leaned forward. The once composed businessman sitting across the courtroom suddenly went pale. This proves he knew exactly what he was doing. Gasps echoed across the chamber. Shock rippled through the crowd. And then, something happened that no one could have anticipated. But before we get to that, let's start from the beginning. The underdog. Noah Harper could feel the weight of every single stare in that courtroom. Some eyes carried amusement, watching him as if he were part of some bizarre spectacle. Others were indifferent, already convinced this was nothing more than a doomed stunt. But there was something else too, doubt. Nobody here believed he could win. On the other side of the room, Richard Langston, a powerful businessman draped in wealth and confidence, lounged effortlessly in his seat. His suit, immaculate. His posture, unbothered. To him, this wasn't even a challenge. Just a minor formality before his inevitable victory. Beside him, Edward Palmer, one of the most cutthroat attorneys in the country, adjusted his tie, barely suppressing a smirk. To them, Noah wasn't an opponent. He was just a kid. Noah set his notes down, his fingers tightening around the edge of the table. The microphone in front of him felt too big. His suit hung off him, oversized and clumsy. The air felt ice-cold. His heart hammered in his chest. But giving up? That wasn't an option. Mr. Harper. Judge Reynolds addressed him, voice measured. I want to make this clear. This is not a school debate. The defense is led by professionals who know the law inside and out. If you proceed, you will be expected to follow legal procedure, present real evidence, and maintain decorum. Do you understand? Noah swallowed hard but nodded. Yes, Your Honor. His voice was steady, but his hands tightened into fists beneath the table. Palmer sighed, shaking his head. Your Honor, let's not waste time. This boy has no legal education, no understanding of case law. He can't possibly. The law is about fairness. Noah's voice cut through Palmer's dismissal, stopping him mid-sentence. A murmur spread through the courtroom. Palmer turned, his smirk fading slightly. Excuse me? The law is supposed to protect people, Noah continued, voice growing stronger. People like my mom, people who trusted Richard Langston and lost everything. We don't have high-paid lawyers. We don't have unlimited resources. But we have the truth. And if justice is real, I have the right to present it. Palmer chuckled, shaking his head again. Admirable speech, he said, voice dripping with condescension. But this is a courtroom, not a playground. A child can't simply. The law allows for pro se representation under exceptional circumstances, Judge Reynolds interrupted. This is one such case. The plaintiff will proceed. A ripple of surprise spread through the audience. Langston's jaw clenched, his confidence shifting ever so slightly. Palmer leaned toward him, whispering something, but whatever he said didn't matter. Noah was in. The first blow. Taking a deep breath, Noah straightened his back and turned toward the jury. When my mom invested in Richard Langston's fund, she wasn't trying to get rich. She just wanted to protect what little we had. He promised security, yet he was secretly funneling people's money into his own pockets.
His voice was calm.
Measured. He reassured investors, even after the money was gone. People lost their life savings. Some lost their homes. We lost everything. For the first time, Langston remained still. Expression unreadable. Noah exhaled, gripping the table. Langston's lawyers will try to distract you with complicated legal jargon. They'll say the risks were clear, that my mom should have read the fine print. But this case? It isn't about fine print. It's about right and wrong. And by the end of this trial, he was going to prove it. Palmer rose, buttoning his suit jacket slowly, deliberately. His every movement was controlled, practiced. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," he said smoothly, "this is a tragedy. No doubt. A boy looking for someone to blame for his misfortunes." Noah clenched his jaw. But tragedy is not fraud. Investments come with risks. Some people lose money. That's unfortunate, yes, but it is not illegal. Palmer gestured toward Noah. He's emotionally invested, but emotions? They aren't evidence. And what he fails to understand is that there is no proof that Richard Langston committed any crime. Noah's fingers curled into a fist beneath the table. Palmer smirked. This was going to be quick. The breakthrough. The trial was tearing him apart. Every objection he raised was shot down. Every point he tried to make was shredded apart by Palmer's precision. His questions? Torn apart by legal loopholes. It was humiliating. But Noah had been watching. Every smirk. Every carefully phrased rebuttal. Every shift in Langston's seat. They thought he was just a kid out of his depth. But what they didn't realize, he was learning. "You said earlier," Noah spoke up suddenly, his voice steady, "that my mother received an email confirming her investment was safe." Palmer barely looked up. "That's correct." Noah lifted a document and held it high. "But here," he continued, "is a report showing that Langston already knew the money was gone before that email was sent." Silence. The jury leaned in. The judge frowned. Langston shifted. Palmer's confidence cracked for just a fraction of a second. Noah saw it. "You misunderstand," Palmer started. Noah didn't blink. "Or it's a lie."
Gasps.
The courtroom had changed. Noah wasn't the joke anymore. He was winning. The moment that changed everything. Late that night, Noah had scoured thousands of pages of financial records. He was exhausted. But he found it. A single document. A memo. Signed by Richard Langston himself. It was the proof no one else had managed to find. The undeniable evidence that Langston had been lying all along. And as Noah held it up for the world to see, Richard Langston, once untouchable, once untouchably powerful, finally looked afraid. The verdict?
Guilty.
Langston's empire crumbled in real time. Reporters rushed to get the story. His mother burst into tears, pulling Noah into a hug. Judge Reynolds tapped his gavel. "In all my years on the bench," he said, "I've never seen anything quite like this." As Noah walked out of that courtroom, cameras flashing, reporters yelling, he was no longer just a kid. He was a hero.